In 2011, Sean Teagle, a then 29-year-old man from Great Yarmouth, appeared before Great Yarmouth Magistrates Court before being committed to Norwich Crown Court to face trial on 17 criminal charges involving indecent images of children, theft, and extreme pornography. Sean Teagle, of Wellesley Road, Great Yarmouth, was committed to stand trial at Norwich Crown Court on July 12 after facing 15 counts of making or possessing indecent images of children, 1 count of theft by an employee, and 1 count of possessing an extreme pornographic image depicting a sexual act on a corpse. Police uncovered the offences on the 22nd of May 2010. Following his initial court appearances, Teagle was granted unconditional bail pending further proceedings in the Crown Court. Following any conviction for child sexual offences or extreme pornography, Teagle would be placed on the sex offenders register. He also remains subject to statutory public protection notification requirements and to long-term risk management by law enforcement, regardless of any eventual outcome or subsequent court sentencing. In 2022, Dominika Weremczuk, a then 25-year-old woman, and Mark Houseman, a then 31-year-old man, were jailed for a combined total of 14 years for child sexual exploitation offences against a teenage girl in Tameside. Dominika Weremczuk, of No Fixed Abode, and Mark Houseman, of West Avenue, Stalybridge, Greater Manchester, were sentenced at Minshall Street Crown Court after being found guilty following a trial. The court heard that the victim met Weremczuk when she was 13 years old and entered into a sexual relationship, during which Weremczuk provided the child with drugs and arranged for her to engage in sexual activity with adult men for money. Weremczuk subsequently introduced the teenager to Houseman, taking her to his home address to engage in sexual activity while Houseman watched and recorded the act. The judge jailed Weremczuk for 11 years after she was convicted of engaging in penetrative sexual activity with a child under 16, arranging or facilitating child sexual exploitation, and causing or inciting child sexual exploitation. Houseman was jailed for 3 years after being convicted of causing and inciting a child under 16 to engage in penetrative sexual activity. Both were also made subject to Sexual Harm Prevention Orders, SHPOs. Following their convictions for child sexual offences, both Weremczuk and Houseman were placed on the sex offenders register. They also remain subject to statutory public protection notification requirements and long-term risk management by law enforcement upon any eventual release from prison. In 2026, Graham Stephenson, a 55-year-old man from Hull, was jailed for over 18 years after pleading guilty to non-recent child sexual abuse against 4 young boys. Graham Stephenson, of Nester Grove, Hull, appeared at Grimsby Crown Court on Monday, the 27th of July 2026. Where he was sentenced after admitting 2 counts of inciting a boy to engage in sexual activity, rape, sexual activity with a child, and making indecent photographs of a child. The court heard that 4 men courageously came forward to report the historic abuse they suffered at Stephenson's hands when they were children. Faced with the victims' accounts and police evidence, Stephenson entered guilty pleas to all charges. The judge sentenced Stephenson to a total of 18 years and 4 months in prison and imposed an indefinite Sexual Harm Prevention Order, SHPO, to restrict his activities and manage public safety upon release. Following his convictions for child rape and sexual abuse, Stephenson was ordered to remain on the sex offenders register for life. He also remains subject to statutory public protection notification requirements and long-term risk management by law enforcement upon any eventual release from custody. In July 2026, Cleveland Police launched a new initiative to embed domestic abuse specialists directly within their 999 emergency control room to improve safeguarding and risk assessment for victims. As part of the second phase of the government-backed Raineems Law pilot, Cleveland Police is one of 12 additional forces nationwide tasked with implementing these enhanced response measures. Specialists from the Charity Harbor Support Services are now stationed in the control room to provide real-time guidance to call handlers and police staff during peak demand periods. Key details of the service include: operational hours. Specialists are available daily from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., including weekends and bank holidays. Core function: acting as a critical friend, they advise on complex risk assessments and help identify immediate safeguarding opportunities during initial 999 calls. Strategic goal: the pilot is central to the government's commitment to halve violence against women and girls, VAWG. Local context: VAWG-related offenses currently account for approximately 20% of all crimes reported to Cleveland Police, with over 16,000 such incidents recorded between April 2025 and March 2026. Background on Raneem's Law. The initiative is named in memory of Raneem Ouda and her mother, Kaula Salim, who were murdered by Raneem's ex-husband in 2018. Despite Raneem making 4 separate 999 calls on the night of the attack, police failed to reach them in time. The legislation aims to prevent similar failures by ensuring expert support is available at the very first point of contact. In 2019, Liam Purnell, a then 50-year-old man of no fixed address in Shropshire, was jailed for 18 months after pleading guilty to child sexual offences involving a teenage child. Liam Purnell appeared at Shrewsbury Crown Court, where he pleaded guilty to engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child and sexual communication with a child. The court heard that on the 29th of December 2018, Purnell engaged in a sexual act on himself in the presence of a young girl. 2 days later, on the 31st of December 2018, Purnell sent the victim explicit text messages and an image discussing the incident, further compounding the abuse. Following his guilty pleas, the judge sentenced Purnell to 18 months in prison. Following his conviction for child sexual offences, Purnell was placed on the sex offenders register. He also remains subject to statutory public protection notification requirements and ongoing risk management by law enforcement upon any eventual release from prison. Jamie Cook, a convicted animal abuser, has changed his name to Jay Crowther but is still living in Kidderminster. Lucy Joanne, a woman with a pet dog, yes, a pet dog, has hooked up with the animal abuser. Jay Crowther is working at Top Mark Roofing in Kidderminster. They will change their name as soon as this post goes out. So if you need a violent animal abuser to fix your roof, then he is your man. The deviant has a 10-year ban on owning dogs, imposed after being convicted in 2024, which includes clauses barring Cook from keeping or transporting the animals. He will, no doubt, have multiple Facebook profiles, but fortunately, he is covered in visible tattoos.